Now that same day, this is the day of the resurrection. This is the day Christ rose from the dead. This is a big day. Now that same day, that day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus. They're going to Emmaus because they didn't know Christ had risen. They had seen the crucifixion and they just packed it in. That was enough. That was it. They were done. They're walking back home, back to Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. Now, catch this. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself, again on the day of his resurrection, found two guys. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. On the day of the resurrection, probably the biggest day in the universe, Jesus takes time out to find two guys who are devastated, two guys who didn't know he had risen, begins to walk with them. Somehow they don't recognize him, and then Jesus asks them, "What are you discussing? Literally, what are you talking about?" Walks up to them. They don't know who he is. He asks them, "What are you talking about? What are you discussing?" They stood still. Their faces were downcast because, again, they're done. And one of them, named Cleophas, asked Jesus on the day of his resurrection, one of them asked Jesus, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have happened here?" Literally, are you the only one clueless that didn't know what's happening in Jerusalem? He asked Jesus that on the day of his resurrection. How would you like to be known forever by name as the one guy who asked Jesus on the day of his resurrection if he knew anything that was going on in Jerusalem that day? That's funny. And Jesus just stood there. And it even gets better. After Cleophas asks this, Jesus looks back and he said, "What things?" And Jesus lets Cleophas tell him what was going on in Jerusalem, even though Cleophas didn't even know that Jesus had risen yet. Just a little insight in the character of Jesus. The guy has a sense of humor. He has a sense of closeness. He took time out on the most important day of the resurrection to find two guys who didn't know he had risen, who were devastated, and spends time with them. I'm going to stop there. We'll pick this up later.